I still remember the exact moment I realized my bank account was empty. I was standing in line at the grocery store, my cart filled with the basics: bread, eggs, milk, some chicken for dinner, when my card declined. The cashier, a young woman with kind eyes, smiled apologetically and asked if I had another form of payment. My cheeks burned as the people behind me shifted impatiently. I tried again. Declined. I mumbled something about a bank error and left my cart right there, walking out into the cold November air with nothing but shame. My hands trembled as I sat in my car and checked my phone. The balance showed $43.27. Just 2 days ago, there had been $127,000. My entire life savings. The money I'd been putting away for 32 years. Every single dollar earned from double shifts at the hospital, from skipping meals, from driving a car held together by duct tape and prayer. Gone. I didn't need to be a detective to know what happened. There was only one other person with access to that account. My son, Marcus. Let me take you back to the beginning, because you need to understand how we got here. You need to understand who I was before life carved me into something harder, something I never wanted to become. I was 19 when I got pregnant with Marcus. His father, David, was 21, charming and utterly unprepared for fatherhood. We weren't married, barely dating really, just two kids who made a mistake at a college party. When I told him, he looked at me like I'd just announced the end of the world. In a way I had, at least the end of his world. "I can't do this, Monica," he said, his voice cracking. We were sitting in his beat-up Honda in the parking lot of a Denny's. It was raining, I remember that. The sound of water hitting the roof made everything feel even more hopeless. "I have plans. I got accepted to law school in California. This wasn't supposed to happen." "It happened to both of us," I whispered, my hand instinctively going to my still flat stomach. "What am I supposed to do?" He reached for his wallet, pulled out $300 in cash and set it on the dashboard between us. "I'm sorry," he said. "I really am. But I can't be a father right now." That was the last time I saw David. He blocked my number, transferred schools, and disappeared into whatever successful life he went on to build. I heard through mutual friends years later that he'd become a corporate attorney, married a doctor, had 2 kids in a suburb somewhere in San Diego. Good for him. Meanwhile, I dropped out of college in my sophomore year. My parents, strict Pentecostal Christians, told me I'd made my bed and now I had to lie in it. They didn't kick me out, but they made it clear I was on my own. I moved into the basement of their house, got a job waitressing at a truck stop diner, and prepared to become a mother at 20. The day Marcus was born was the most terrifying and beautiful day of my life. He came 3 weeks early, barely 6 pounds, with a head full of black hair and lungs that could wake the dead. When the nurse placed him in my arms, I looked into his scrunched-up face and made him a promise. "I will never leave you," I whispered. "I will give you everything I never had. You will never feel unwanted. Never." I kept that promise. God, I kept it. I worked myself to the bone for that boy. I went back to school at night, got my nursing degree while working full-time and raising a toddler. My parents helped sometimes, but mostly they just criticized. "You're spoiling him," my mother would say when she saw me buying Marcus new shoes or a toy he'd been wanting. "You're teaching him the world owes him something." But she didn't understand. How could she? She'd grown up in a stable home with 2 parents who loved her. Marcus deserved that same security, and if I had to be both mother and father, then so be it. When Marcus was 7, I met Robert. He was an ER doctor, 15 years older than me, divorced with no kids of his own. He was kind to Marcus, patient with my chaotic schedule, and for the first time since David left, I let myself believe in second chances. We dated for 2 years, and when he proposed, I said yes without hesitation. "We're going to be a real family now," I told Marcus the night Robert moved in. My son was 9 then, shy and sensitive, always worried about making me happy. "You're going to have a dad, sweetheart. Isn't that wonderful?" Marcus nodded, but there was something in his eyes I didn't recognize then. Something guarded. Something that should have warned me. The marriage lasted 4 years. 4 years of trying to blend a family that didn't want to blend. Robert tried, I'll give him that. He came to Marcus's baseball games, helped with homework, took us on vacations to Disney World and the Grand Canyon. But Marcus never warmed to him. He was polite, obedient even, but cold. And slowly, that coldness created a wall between Robert and me. He doesn't want me here, Robert said one night after Marcus had barely said 2 words at dinner. I'm trying, Monica. But he looks at me like I'm the enemy. He just needs more time, I insisted, though I was starting to doubt it myself. He's been through a lot. His real father abandoned him. He's protecting himself. Or you're protecting him too much, Robert said quietly. You give him everything, Monica, everything, and he gives nothing back. Not to you, not to me. When does he learn that relationships require effort from both sides? I should have listened. God, I should have listened. We divorced when Marcus was 13. Robert moved to Arizona for a job opportunity, and we never spoke again. I told myself it was for the best, that Marcus needed stability, that splitting my attention between a husband and my son wasn't fair to either of them. But the truth was simpler and more painful. I chose Marcus. I would always choose Marcus. The teenage years were hard. Marcus became withdrawn, spending hours in his room playing video games or scrolling through his phone. He had friends, but they seemed like strangers to me, boys with elaborate sneakers and attitudes to match. They'd come over and barely acknowledge me, treating me like furniture in my own home. Marcus, can you introduce me to your friends? I asked once, trying to sound casual as 3 boys lounged on my couch. That's just my mom, Marcus muttered, not even looking up from his phone. The boys snickered. I have a name, I said, my voice sharper than intended. Monica, nice to meet you all. They mumbled hellos, but I could feel their judgment. The single mother. The woman who couldn't keep a husband. I retreated to the kitchen and cried while washing dishes that didn't need washing, but I kept trying. I showed up to every parent-teacher conference, every school event. I worked extra shifts to buy Marcus the expensive basketball shoes he wanted, the new PlayStation, the designer jacket all his friends had. When he got accepted to State University, I was so proud I cried for an hour. I'm going to major in business, he announced at dinner, rare excitement in his voice. Maybe finance. I want to make real money, Mom. Not just be a nurse like me, I finished, trying to keep the hurt out of my voice. That's not what I meant, he said quickly, but we both knew it was. I paid for college. All of it. Tuition, room and board, books, spending money. The university was only an hour away, but Marcus rarely came home. Once a month if I was lucky, and only when he needed something. Money for textbooks. Money for a campus organization fee. Money for a spring break trip with friends. I just want you to have the opportunities I never had, I told him during one of his brief visits home. He was in his sophomore year, 20 years old, and I barely recognized the man he was becoming. Confident, ambitious, but with an edge I didn't like. College is supposed to be the best years of your life. It would be better if I didn't have to work, he said. All my friends' parents give them allowances. I'm the only one who has to have a job. I blinked at him. Marcus, I'm paying $20,000 a year for your education. I'm giving you what I can for expenses. I'm sorry if that's not enough, but I know, he interrupted, his tone softening slightly. You work so hard. You sacrifice so much. I get it, Mom. I just wish things were easier, you know? I added him to my bank account that year. It seemed practical at the time. If he had an emergency, he could access funds. If I was working a double shift and couldn't transfer money quickly, he wouldn't be stranded. It was supposed to be for emergencies only. The first time he took money without asking, it was $300. I noticed it missing and called him. Oh yeah, sorry, he said casually. I needed a new laptop. Mine crashed. I was going to tell you, but I figured since you gave me access, it was fine. Marcus, you need to ask first, I said, trying to keep my voice level. This is my savings, honey. I need to know what's going out. Right, yes, sorry. Won't happen again. But it did happen again, and again. Small amounts, usually a few hundred here and there. Each time he had an excuse. Car repairs, Textbooks were more expensive than expected. His rent went up. I wanted to trust him, wanted to believe my son wouldn't take advantage of me. So I convinced myself it was fine. This was what mothers did. We helped our children. After college, Marcus moved to Chicago for a job at a financial consulting firm. I was so proud. My son, the professional, he wore suits now, sent me photos from office happy hours, talked about clients and portfolios. He called less and less, and his visits home stopped entirely. "It's just so hard to get away, Mom," he explained during one of our increasingly rare phone calls. "I'm working 60-hour weeks. I barely have time to do my laundry." "I could come visit you," I suggested hopefully. "I've never seen your apartment. I'd love to see where you live. Maybe take you to dinner." "My place is tiny. You wouldn't be comfortable. And honestly, I'm barely there. Let's wait until things slow down, okay?" They never slowed down. 3 years passed. 3 years of watching my son's life through social media posts. Marcus at rooftop parties. Marcus at expensive restaurants. Marcus on a vacation to Cancun with friends. Always smiling. Always surrounded by people. Never with me. The financial transfers continued. Bigger now. 1,000 here. 2,000 there. Once, 5,000. "I'm investing," he told me when I questioned that one. "Crypto and stocks. It's how you build wealth, Mom. I'm thinking about our future. Yours and mine." "I don't need you to invest for me," I said. "I just need you to be honest about what you're taking." "I am being honest. Look, you don't understand how this works. I'm going to double this money, triple it maybe. Then I'll pay you back everything with interest. You have to trust me." I wanted to trust him. He was my son, the child I'd sacrificed everything for. So I let it go. Then came that November day. The declined card, the empty account, $127,000 gone. I drove straight to the bank from the grocery store. The manager, a middle-aged man with sympathetic eyes, pulled up my account history. The transactions were all there. Dozens of them over the past 3 weeks. 5,000 here, 10,000 there. 3 separate transfers of 20,000 each. All authorized by Marcus's access to the account. "The last withdrawal was yesterday," the manager said softly. $45,000. "Is this? Did you not authorize these?" My throat was so tight I could barely speak. "No," I whispered. "I mean, he has access, but I didn't know. He didn't ask." "I'm very sorry, Mrs. Morrison, but since he's an authorized user on the account, these are all legal transactions. There's nothing we can do unless you want to file a police report for theft, but given the circumstances..." He trailed off meaningfully, file charges against my own son. The thought made me physically ill. I sat in my car in the bank parking lot for 2 hours, just staring at nothing. My phone was in my hand. I should call him. I should scream, demand answers, ask him how he could do this to me. But I couldn't make my fingers move. Part of me was hoping there was an explanation, some emergency I didn't know about, something that would make this okay. Finally, I called. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. On the 3rd try, he picked up. "Hey, Mom, kinda busy right now." "What's up?" His casual tone, like nothing was wrong, like he hadn't just stolen my entire life savings, broke something in me. "What's up?" I repeated, my voice shaking. "Marcus, my bank account is empty. $127,000. Gone. You took it? All of it." There was a pause. "Oh, yeah. Listen, I can explain." "Explain?" I was yelling now, months of exhaustion and disappointment pouring out. "Explain how you stole from your own mother? Explain how you took every penny I'd saved for 32 years? "I didn't steal it," he said defensively. "You gave me access, and it's not gone. It's invested. I told you I was investing. There's this opportunity, Mom. It's huge. cryptocurrency and NFTs. My friend Jason knows this guy who— I don't care about Jason or some guy, I screamed. That was my retirement, Marcus. That was my security. I'm 52 years old and I have $43 to my name. You're being dramatic, he said, and I could hear the eye roll in his voice. I'll pay you back. Once this investment pays off, I'll give you back double, I promise. When? I demanded. When is this magical investment going to pay off? I don't know. 6 months, maybe a year. These things take time. Look, I have to go. We'll talk later, okay? He hung up. I sat there in disbelief, staring at my phone. My son had stolen everything from me and acted like I was the unreasonable one for being upset. This couldn't be real. This had to be a nightmare I'd wake up from. But it wasn't. It was my life. I went home to my small 2-bedroom house, the house I'd bought through years of careful saving, now underwater on the mortgage because I'd refinanced it twice to pay for Marcus's expenses. I walked through rooms filled with memories of sacrifice, the couch I'd had for 15 years because I couldn't afford a new one, the kitchen table from Goodwill, the TV I'd gotten on Black Friday 5 years ago, the only luxury I'd allowed myself. On the mantel were photos. Marcus as a baby, chubby and smiling. Marcus in his Little League uniform, me crouched beside him. Marcus at high school graduation, his arm around my shoulder. Marcus at college graduation, looking at something off camera while I gazed at him with pure pride. When had I lost him? When had my sweet, sensitive little boy become someone who could do this to me? I didn't sleep that night. I just sat in the dark and thought about my life, about every choice I'd made. Dropping out of college, working doubles and triples, skipping meals so Marcus could have new clothes, driving a car that broke down monthly because Marcus needed a reliable car for high school, divorcing Robert because Marcus came first, always first, and this was my reward. At 3 a.m., something crystallized in my mind. A memory. Something Robert had said years ago, during one of our last arguments before the divorce. You're not helping him by doing everything for him, Monica. You're crippling him. He'll never learn to stand on his own because you won't let him fall, and one day, he's going to resent you for it. Or worse, he'll destroy you because he's never learned that actions have consequences. I'd hated Robert for saying that. Hated him for suggesting I was a bad mother, that my love was somehow wrong. But sitting there in the dark, broke and betrayed, I finally understood. I hadn't raised a son. I'd raised a monster who took and took and took because he'd never been taught to give, because I'd never let him feel the weight of his own mistakes, because I'd always been there to catch him, to fix things, to sacrifice myself so he wouldn't have to sacrifice anything. And now I had nothing left to give. The next morning, I called my supervisor at the hospital and asked for every available shift. Double shifts, overnight shifts, holidays. I'd take them all. At 52, my body already ached constantly, but I had no choice. I had to rebuild my life from nothing, and I didn't have the luxury of time. I also called a lawyer, a bankruptcy attorney I'd heard about from a coworker. I explained my situation, and she listened with the weary expression of someone who'd heard similar stories too many times. You could press charges, she said. Theft, even from a family member, is still theft if you can prove it wasn't authorized. He was an authorized user on the account, I said dully. The bank already told me there's nothing they can do. Not criminally, maybe, but civil court is different. You could sue him for the money. The thought of taking my son to court made me want to vomit. And if I win, how would I collect? He doesn't have it anymore. He invested it. The lawyer shrugged. You could potentially garnish future wages, place a lien on any property he might acquire. But you're right. If the money's gone, recovery is difficult. The better question is, what do you want out of this? Justice? Revenge? To teach him a lesson? I thought about that for a long time. I want him to understand what he did to me, I finally said. I want him to feel, just for a moment, what I'm feeling. She nodded slowly. Then you need to do something he won't expect. Something that will shake his entire world the way he's shaken yours. Over the next few weeks, I formulated a plan. It wasn't about revenge, not really. It was about truth, about consequences, about finally letting my son fall. I didn't call Marcus. He didn't call me either, which somehow hurt worse than the theft. During this time, I saw on his Instagram that he'd moved into a new apartment, a luxury high-rise, in downtown Chicago with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of Lake Michigan. The rent alone probably cost more than my monthly income. I also discovered, through some careful internet searching and a private investigator I paid with money borrowed from my credit card, that Marcus had recently bought a Tesla. Cash. $48,000. For a car. My money. He'd bought a Tesla with my retirement savings. I threw up when I found out, literally bent over my toilet and retched until there was nothing left. But I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I started making phone calls. First, I called every family member I had. My parents, now in their 80s and still judgmental as ever. My sister in Florida, who I hadn't spoken to in 5 years. My cousins, aunts, uncles. I told them everything. Every detail of what Marcus had done. I sent them the bank statements, the transaction histories, screenshots of his lavish lifestyle on social media. I need you to understand something, I told each of them. I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking for anything except this. When Marcus calls you looking for help, for a loan, for a place to stay, I need you to say no. I need you to let him experience consequences for the first time in his life. Most agreed, though some reluctantly. My mother, predictably, said, I told you that you were spoiling him. This is what happens when you don't teach children discipline. You're right, I said, and the admission clearly shocked her. You were right about everything. And now I'm fixing it. Will you help me or not? She agreed. Next, I called Marcus's employer. I didn't tell them what he'd done. That would be crossing a line I wasn't ready to cross. But I did ask to speak to HR about a family matter regarding their employee, Marcus Morrison. The HR representative was professional, but confused by my vague concern about my son potentially having substance abuse or gambling problems. We haven't observed any such behavior, she assured me. But thank you for bringing it to our attention. We'll keep an eye out. It was enough. The seed was planted. Then I did something that felt both empowering and terrifying. I removed Marcus's access from my bank account. Not that there was anything left to take, but I needed to close that door. I also changed my will. Marcus had been the sole beneficiary of my life insurance policy, my 401k, everything. Now it would all go to charity. The American Nurses Association Scholarship Fund specifically. Let my life's work help someone who actually appreciated sacrifice. Finally, 3 months after the theft, I called Marcus. He answered on the first ring. Mom, hey, I was just thinking about you. How are you? His cheerful tone, like nothing had happened, like he hadn't destroyed me, made me want to scream. But I kept my voice calm. I'm calling to let you know that I'm sick, I said. Silence. What? What do you mean sick? I've been having chest pains. Severe ones. I went to the doctor, and they found some irregularities in my heart rhythm. They're running more tests, but they think it might be serious. Heart disease. It runs in my father's side of the family, you know. More silence. Jesus, Mom, Are you okay? What are the doctors saying? It was all a lie. My heart was fine. Well, fine except for being broken. But Marcus didn't know that. They're saying I need to reduce stress. Take it easy. Maybe think about retiring early. I paused for effect. The problem is I can't afford to retire. I have no savings left, remember? You took it all. Mom, I'm not starting anything, I said calmly. I'm just stating facts. I worked a 16-hour shift yesterday, and I have another one today. At my age with a heart condition, that's dangerous. But I have no choice. I have to work until I literally die because my son stole my retirement. I didn't steal it. God, why do you keep saying that? I invested it. The market's just down right now, but it'll bounce back. You just need to be patient. No, Marcus. You need to understand something. That money is gone. Your investment isn't coming back. And even if it does, you're not giving it back to me. You'll find another reason to keep it, another opportunity, another excuse. I know you now. I know who you are. What the hell is that supposed to mean? His voice was angry now. I'm trying to help us both here. I'm trying to build something. You're trying to build your life on the ruins of mine, I said. And I let you. For 32 years I let you. But I'm done now. Done with what? Done being your mother. The words hung in the air between us. I heard his sharp intake of breath. You don't mean that, he said finally. I do. I'm removing you from my emergency contacts. I've changed my will. You're no longer my beneficiary. When I die, and according to my doctors that might be sooner rather than later, you'll get nothing. Everything I have left will go to charity. You're being insane, he shouted. You can't just disown me because you're mad about money. This isn't about money, I shouted back, my composure finally breaking. This is about you taking everything I am, everything I worked for, everything I sacrificed, and treating it like it meant nothing. Like I meant nothing. You didn't just take my savings, Marcus. You took my dignity, my future, my ability to ever stop working. Do you understand that? I will work until I die now because of you. I said I'll pay you back. When? When you're 40 and I'm dead from exhaustion? When your investment finally pays off in some fantasy future that will never come. You're living in a luxury apartment, driving a Tesla, going to expensive restaurants every week. I see it all on Instagram, by the way. You have money. You just don't have money for me. He was quiet for a long moment. What do you want from me? He finally asked, his voice cold. I want you to feel what I feel, I said. Just once, just for a moment. I want you to know what it's like to have nothing. You're crazy, he said. You know that? You're actually crazy. He hung up. I sat there holding the phone, tears streaming down my face. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like death. But I wasn't done. Over the next few months, my plan unfolded in ways I hadn't entirely anticipated. Marcus did start calling family members asking for money. His cryptocurrency investment had predictably collapsed. The friends can't miss opportunity had been a scam. Every penny was gone. He called my sister first. She told him no and immediately called to tell me about it. He was crying, Monica, she said. Actual tears. He said he was going to lose his apartment, his car, everything. He begged me for $50,000. What did you say? I said no, like you asked. But it was hard. He's my nephew. He's also a 32-year-old man who stole from his mother, I reminded her. Let him figure it out. He called my parents next. My father hung up on him. My mother, softer-hearted despite her harsh words, offered him advice on budgeting but no money. He called cousins, aunts, uncles. Everyone said no. The family had closed ranks around me, and Marcus was on the outside for the first time in his life. His next call was to me. It came at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. I was just getting home from a shift, so exhausted I could barely stand, and his name lit up my phone. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity got the better of me. Mom, he said, and his voice was wrecked. He'd been crying, I could tell. Mom, please. I need help. I'm going to lose everything. The investment fell through, and I can't make rent. They're going to evict me. The bank is threatening to repossess my car. I have nothing. Please. Every maternal instinct in me wanted to fix it, to save him, to make the pain in his voice go away. 32 years of conditioning screamed at me to help my child. No, I said. What? No, figure it out yourself. You can't be serious. I'm your son. And you were my son when you took everything from me, I said. You were my son when you bought a Tesla with my retirement money. You were my son when you moved into a luxury apartment while I worked 16-hour shifts. You want to be my son? Then act like it. Get a job. Multiple jobs. Downsize. Sell the car. Move somewhere cheaper. Do what I've been doing my entire adult life. Sacrifice and struggle and survive. I have a job. It's not enough. The cost of living here is insane. Then move. Chicago isn't the only city in America. Find somewhere cheaper. Figure it out. I can't believe you're doing this to me, he said, his voice venomous now. You're my mother. You're supposed to help me. I did help you. For 32 years, I helped you. I gave you everything, and you threw it away on a scam because you thought you were smarter than everyone else, that you could get rich quick without putting in the work. This is your lesson, Marcus. This is you learning that actions have consequences. I hate you, he spat. You're a bitter, vindictive old woman, and I hate you. The words should have hurt. Maybe they did, but mostly I just felt tired. Okay, I said softly. Hate me if that makes it easier. But you're still not getting any money. I hung up and turned off my phone. The next few months were hard in ways I can't fully describe. I worked constantly, sleeping maybe 4 hours a night. My body was breaking down. My knees ached, my back spasmed, my hands trembled from exhaustion. But I kept going because stopping wasn't an option. I heard through family that Marcus had lost his apartment. He'd moved in with a friend temporarily, then to a cheaper place on the outskirts of Chicago. The Tesla was repossessed. He'd taken a second job as a bartender on weekends. Good, I thought. Let him work. Let him struggle. Let him understand. But the part of me that was still a mother ached. I found myself checking his Instagram compulsively, looking for signs that he was okay. The posts became less frequent, less glamorous. No more rooftop parties or fancy dinners. Just occasional photos of Chicago streets, sunsets, ordinary moments. 6 months after our last conversation, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten, my name and address in Marcus's familiar scrawl. I stared at it for an hour before I could open it. Mom, I don't know if you'll even read this. You probably hate me. You should hate me. I've been thinking a lot these past few months. About everything. About what I did to you. About who I've become. You were right. The investment was a scam. I lost everything. Not just your money, but everything I'd saved too. I thought I was so smart that I'd found this amazing opportunity that everyone else was too stupid to see. I thought I could make us both rich, that I could finally be the successful son you always wanted. But the truth is, I wasn't trying to help you. I was trying to prove something to myself, that I was better than my life, better than being the kid raised by a single mom in a basement apartment, better than you. God, writing that makes me sick. You gave me everything, everything, and I looked down on you for it. I was embarrassed by you, by your sacrifices, by the fact that my mother was just a nurse, while my friends' parents were lawyers and executives. I'm living in a studio apartment now. It's in a bad neighborhood, and there's roaches, and I can hear every conversation my neighbors have through the walls. I work 60 hours a week between my 2 jobs. I eat ramen and discount bread. I haven't bought new clothes in 6 months. My coworkers don't invite me out anymore because they know I can't afford it. And you know what? I finally get it. I finally understand what you did for me. What you sacrificed. You lived like this for decades so I wouldn't have to. And I thanked you by taking the only security you'd ever managed to build and throwing it away. I can't fix this. I know that. There's no amount of apologizing that will give you back those years of savings. There's no amount of sorry that will undo what I did. But I'm trying to be better. I've been putting money aside every paycheck. It's not much, maybe $300 or $400 a month after expenses. But I'm going to pay you back. Every penny. Even if it takes the rest of my life. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect anything from you. I just needed you to know that I finally understand. I understand what it means to struggle. To be tired all the time. To make choices between eating and paying rent. To feel like you're drowning and no one's coming to save you. You felt like that for decades. Because of me. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. Marcus, I read the letter 3 times, tears blurring the words. Part of me wanted to crumple it up, to stay angry, to keep my walls up. He'd hurt me worse than anyone ever had. He'd taken everything. But another part of me, the part that had held him as a newborn and promised never to leave him, wanted to call him, to tell him I loved him, to make everything okay again. I did neither. Instead, I put the letter in a drawer and went to work. 2 weeks later, I got a notification from my bank. A deposit, $400. The memo line said, "Payment 1 of forever." I'm sorry. And the next month, another deposit. $350 this time. Then $400 again. Then $500 every month like clockwork. Never late. Never with a phone call or a demand for gratitude. Just money appearing in my account, slowly rebuilding what he'd taken. I didn't call him. I didn't thank him. I just watched the numbers grow, dollar by painful dollar. It took me 8 months to realize something. I didn't want his money. I wanted my son back. But that son, the sweet, sensitive little boy who'd loved me unconditionally, didn't exist anymore. Maybe he never had. Maybe I'd invented him, created a fantasy child who I'd raised to be grateful and devoted, and been shocked when reality didn't match my imagination. The real Marcus was flawed, selfish, capable of breathtaking cruelty. But also, apparently, capable of learning, of change, of working 3 jobs to pay back a debt he'd never legally be required to pay. I didn't know what to do with that. A year after our last conversation, I finally called him. He answered on the first ring, like he'd been waiting. "Mom, I got your letter," I said. "And the payments." "All of them." "Okay," he said carefully. "I'm going to keep sending them. I know it'll take years, maybe decades, but—" "Marcus," I interrupted. "How are you?" Silence. "What?" "How are you? Are you eating enough? Are you sleeping? Are you okay?" I heard him choke up. "I'm okay," he managed. "It's hard, but I'm okay." "Good," I said. "That's good." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on us. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I finally said. "Not yet. Maybe not ever. What you did to me, it broke something, Marcus. Something I don't know how to fix." "I know," he whispered. "But I want you to understand something. I didn't teach you this lesson because I hate you. I taught it to you because I love you. Because you needed to understand that the world doesn't owe you anything. That success comes from work and sacrifice, and sometimes from falling flat on your face and having to get back up alone." "I understand that now," he said. "I promise I do." "I hope so," I said. "I really hope so." Another silence. "Can I ask you something?" He said. "Were you really sick? The heart thing?" I could lie. Keep that last bit of leverage, that last weapon. But I was tired of weapons. "No," I admitted. I lied. "My heart is fine." "Oh," he said softly. "Okay. Are you mad?" "No," he said. "I deserved it. I deserved all of it." We talked for a few more minutes. Awkward, halting conversation about nothing important. The weather, his jobs, my shifts at the hospital. It felt like talking to a stranger, because in many ways, that's what we were now. 2 people who'd once been close, finding our way back from opposite sides of a canyon. When we hung up, I felt hollowed out. But also, for the first time in over a year, I felt something else. Hope. Marcus kept sending payments. Every month. Without fail. 3 years later, he'd paid back about $40,000. At his current rate, it would take him decades to repay everything. I'd be dead before he finished. But that wasn't the point anymore. The point was that my son was working. Really working. Not for some fantasy get-rich-quick scheme, but for honest money earned through sweat and time. He'd been promoted at his main job. He'd quit the bartending gig but picked up freelance financial consulting work instead. He was building a real career, a real life, the hard way, and he called me. Not every day, not even every week, but regularly. We talked about his life, my life, books we were reading, shows we were watching. We didn't talk about the money. We didn't talk about what he'd done. We just talked. Last month, Marcus drove up from Chicago to visit me. It was the first time I'd seen him in person in 4 years, He looked older, tired. There were lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before, and his hair was starting to thin. He'd lost weight, and his clothes, while clean, were clearly old and worn. He looked like he'd lived. We had dinner at my house. Nothing fancy, just spaghetti and garlic bread, the meal I'd made 1,000 times when he was a kid. We ate mostly in silence, the awkwardness of 4 years apart heavy in the air. After dinner, as I was clearing plates, Marcus said, "Your house looks exactly the same." "Can't afford to change much," I said with a slight smile. "Some of us are still building our retirement savings." He flinched, but nodded. "Right, yeah." I immediately regretted the comment. "Sorry, that was—" "No," he interrupted. "Don't apologize. You're allowed to say things like that. You're allowed to be angry. Forever, probably." I sat back down across from him. "I'm not angry anymore," I said, and realized it was true. "I'm just tired." "I know you probably won't believe this," he said, staring at his hands. "But what I did, what you did in response, it changed my life. I was such a piece of shit, Mom. So entitled and arrogant and convinced I was special. If you'd just forgiven me or taken me back or kept enabling me, I would have done it again. Maybe not to you, but to someone. I would have kept taking and taking because I'd never learned that I couldn't. You could have learned that lesson without me losing everything," I pointed out. "Maybe," he admitted. "But I didn't, and now I have. I know what it means to struggle, to work yourself to exhaustion for barely enough to survive, to make sacrifices. I finally understand what you did for me. Do you resent me for it?" I asked. "For letting you fall?" He thought about that for a long time. "Sometimes," he said honestly. "Sometimes I'm angry that you didn't help me, that you let me lose everything. But then I remember that you'd already lost everything because of me. And I realize I have no right to be angry." We sat in silence, the evening sun casting long shadows across my kitchen floor. "I don't think I'll ever be able to pay you back," he said finally. "Not all of it. Not before you. Not in time. I know," I said. "So what do we do?" he asked. "Where do we go from here?" I looked at my son, really looked at him, and saw someone I didn't fully recognize. The selfish boy was gone. In his place was a man who'd been broken and was rebuilding himself piece by painful piece. He wasn't the son I'd dreamed of raising. He was something more complicated, more real. "We keep going," I said. "You keep working." "I keep working. You keep sending payments if it makes you feel better, or don't if it doesn't. We talk when we can. We try to build something new out of what's left." "Is that enough?" he asked. "For you?" I thought about everything I'd lost. The savings, the security, the dream of a comfortable retirement, the fantasy of a son who'd take care of me in my old age, who'd be there at my bedside when I died, who'd carry me in his heart the way I'd carried him in mine. All of it. Gone. "I don't know," I admitted. "Ask me again in 10 years. He nodded, accepting that. "Okay." Before he left that evening, he hugged me. Really hugged me, the way he used to when he was small and I was his whole world. I felt how thin he'd gotten, how hard his life had become, and something in me cracked open. "I love you," I whispered into his shoulder. "I never stopped loving you. Even when I hated you, I loved you." "I love you too," he said, his voice breaking. "I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to deserve it." After he left, I sat in my living room and cried. Not the angry, bitter tears I'd cried when I first discovered the theft. These were different. Sadness, yes, but also release. Grief for what we'd lost, but also something like acceptance. My son had destroyed me, and I had destroyed the person he'd been. And now we were both trying to build something from the rubble. I don't know if we'll succeed. I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive him, or if he'll ever fully forgive himself. I don't know if the money will ever come back, or if I'll work until the day I die like I told him I would. But I know this. I taught him the lesson I needed to teach. I let him fall. I let him learn what it means to struggle, to sacrifice, to understand that the world owes you nothing and everything you get you have to earn. And maybe, just maybe, I learned something too. That love without boundaries isn't love, it's destruction. That sacrifice without limits doesn't create gratitude, it creates entitlement. That sometimes the greatest act of love is letting someone you love experience pain. I'm 55 now. My body hurts constantly. I have maybe $10,000 saved. Nothing compared to what I had, but more than the $43 I had that day in the grocery store. Marcus still sends payments every month, and I've started putting them aside in a separate account. Maybe one day I'll give them back to him. Maybe I won't. I haven't decided yet. What I have decided is that I deserve more than I allowed myself to have. I deserve rest. I deserve security. I deserve a life that's more than sacrifice and struggle. So I'm working toward that now, slowly but deliberately. Putting myself first for once. Marcus calls every Sunday now. We don't talk about the past much. We talk about the present, about small things, about slowly rebuilding trust one conversation at a time. Is it enough? Is it justice? Is it healing? I don't know, but it's what we have. Two broken people trying to find their way back to each other across a wasteland of hurt and betrayal and love that somehow survived it all. If there's a lesson in this story, it's this. Love is not enough. Love without accountability, without consequences, without boundaries, will destroy everyone it touches. The kindest thing I ever did for my son was the cruelest. I let him fall. And the cruelest thing he ever did to me was the catalyst for me learning to value myself. We are both paying for our mistakes. Him with money he can barely afford to send. Me with a retirement that will never be what it should have been. With a relationship that will never be what it was. But we're paying. We're learning. We're growing. And some nights, when the phone rings and I see his name, and we talk about nothing and everything, I feel something I thought I'd lost forever. Not forgiveness. Not yet, but something close to it. Something like a future. Even if it's not the future I planned, even if it's built on rubble and regret, it's ours. Mine and his, mother and son, broken and rebuilding, together and separate, connected by wounds that might one day become scars. And maybe, in the end, that's the best we can hope for. Not a happy ending, just an honest one,